Live from deep in an underground bunker in East Tennessee, this is America's premier mortgage field services expert, Paul Williams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Foreclosurepedia Podcast. Foreclosurepedia Podcast, presentation of the Foreclosurepedia Radio Network, which premieres each weekend. The day is the 15th of April, 2017, and the time is 4:15. What's on everybody's mind? What's really going on out there in the industry today? Well, on the one hand, we have Purdy Enterprises, was recently awarded the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development's M&M Field Service Manager 3.10 contract. Thomas Purdy's an individual out of North Carolina, service-connected disabled veteran. And so our hats off to him. We have confirmation that Purdy and Purdy Enterprise are going to work directly with labor. Obviously, it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case. We're hopeful it'll be the case. We're going to hold them to that. But regardless, it does actually show that HUD, that Craig Carnes and his team are fundamentally committed to allowing small business a fair shake in the industry. It's a historic award because, as I say, never before has a true small business, standalone, no joint venture, been awarded a HUD contract. So, what remains to be seen is what's going to happen with the rest of the awards. And that brings me to what I want to talk about today. You know, the Bowerman Decision, which just came down in California, this is the second misclassification of workers lawsuit, which was won, which stated point blank that contractors are employees in this industry. And actually, let me stop right there. The Bowerman Decision, Fred and Julia Bowerman, back in January 7th of 2013, sued Field Asset Services. They sued them in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. Now, FAS today is owned by Assurant Field Asset Services. And they sued them based upon a judgment which had been rendered in Hurst v. Buchek Enterprises. Now, all of these companies whom have been sued to date, they all have a common theme. They are all members of the National Association of Mortgage Field Services regime. In 2012, Brad Hurst got a judgment, a six-figure settlement in the same court. Now, the National Association of Mortgage Field Services knew about this settlement, and we know that because Buchek Enterprises, former CTO, I guess you'd call him, technical officer. Anyway, the name was Brian Drain, who also ran ACA on behalf of Adam and Amanda Buchek. Everybody was aware that there are no contractors in this industry. In fact, the only reason that the term independent contractor is used is because NAMP's regime members do not want to pay tax. It's the only reason. There is no other reason. There is no legal reason. There is no justification. Now, Eric Miller could have gone to his members in his trade association and said, look, so that NAMPS doesn't eventually get sued, you guys need to obey the law. But he didn't. And in fact, when Mr. and Mrs. Bowerman sued FAS laughed. They sued FAS for breach of contract, breach of covenant of good faith and fair dealing, willful misclassification of independent contractor status, failure to pay overtime wages, failure to pay wages for hours worked, failure to indemnify, and violations of the unfair competition law. And you know what? The federal judge in this matter, in the Bowerman matter, ruled identically but went way, way further. In a 50-page ruling, the federal judge chastised FAS for, in essence, their bullshit. In fact, he breaks it down in these 50 pages and states no one, no jury, nobody else could ever come to any other conclusion other than these alleged misclassified independent contractors were, in fact, employees. And we have it up there on the Foreclosurepedia website. The United States District Judge in this case was William H. Orrick. It's an incredible ruling. You really need to go read it. He goes a step further, though, and he certifies the class. Now, in this case, it wasn't that many people. But that's rare that it ever happens, and it did happen. We have yet another lawsuit, which will be ruled in the coming weeks, in the Bennett Vincent versus AMS. Now, remember, AMS was bought by MCS. And that ruling is going to be identical. So this is not new information. Why? Why am I bringing it up? Individuals in the state of California recently have been contacted by the state controller. The California state controller. And I want to tell you a little bit about why this is important. Now, in 2014, then California State Controller John Chiang launched what is known as Operation Pay Up. Now, I'm quoting from Generation Progress here. Article written by Lucy Stratton, October 30th, 2014. Titled, California Fights Wage Theft with a Forgotten 55-Year-Old Statute. Quote, thanks to a forgotten 55-year-old statute, the California State Controller and the State Labor Commissioner are identifying wage theft, prosecuting offending employers, and returning lost wages to the workers who earned them. Under the California unclaimed property law, lost wages become payable to the state after 1 year, where they can be claimed by the employees who earned them. This law gives the state the authority to directly fight wage theft. Now, if you think that this is trivial, let me talk to you a little bit about it. And back to the same article, paragraph 2, quote, since entering office in 2007, California State Controller John Chiang has used the law to target Fresno Protein Processors, Elk Grove Ford, All-American Pet Company, and Spirit Airport Services. Chiang's plan, commonly known as Operation Pay Up, has shown no signs of slowing down. Back wages collected through this program has ranged from $50,000 to $850,000, representing the lost earnings of hundreds of low-wage workers. I want you to listen to this sentence right here. If you are a NAMPS member, I want you to listen to this. If you have a company in California, or you're doing business in California, I want you to listen to this sentence. Quote, Businesses that refuse to pay lost wages to the state controller's office within 10 days can be fined up to $50,000 with high interest fees. Why is this important? I spoke with several contractors over the past couple of days whom the California State Controller's Office has reached out to directly. The state of California is not going to bullshit around. And while MCS, while Assurant, while Safeguard, and while the rest of the National Association of Mortgage Field Services regime may believe that they control everything, they don't control jack shit when it comes to governments collecting monies. And if you think it's going to remain in California, you truly are ignorant. Now, I have as yet not met a smart person in NAMPS. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I got a lot of clients that are NAMPS members, but at the end of the day, the reason that they are my client is because they truly do not understand. They do not understand or comprehend the landscape that they are operating in. That is why they come to Foreclosurepedia. They want to be able to navigate the uncharted waters in an amicable manner. Now, I guarantee you within 12 to 18 months, every state that needs money, and I'm pretty sure that's all 50, they're going to come down this road. Because we are talking tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in wage theft. And if you think that it's going to stop with the state government, I want you to think about the IRS. This is a pot of money. It is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And do you know whose asshole that rainbow is coming out of? Eric Miller. Make no mistake about that whatsoever. Miller and his merry band of financial terrorists are finally going to be held accountable. Now, California has truly perfected Operation Pay Up out there. They estimate about $390 million a year is being defrauded from low-income workers. In this case, we now have 2 federal court rulings, and we're going to have our third within weeks. But look, it's not just simply the mortgage field services industry. All right? I don't know if any of you watch football. I'm quoting here from the LA Times. Cheerleaders' wage theft lawsuit to cost Oakland Raiders $1.25 million. Now, you may say, what do cheerleaders have to do with the industry? Well, they had to do a lot of work, and they weren't getting paid until the very end. Quote, the team is now also paying cheerleaders $9 an hour instead of $125 a game, roughly tripling their wages. Cheerleaders, in this instant case, were working about 350 hours, and they weren't getting jack shit. The case came in the Alameda Superior Court, and the team came to a settlement rapidly. Spot on. Spot on. Cheerleaders have always been ruled to be independent contractors. We know in this case now they are not either. Now, show prep, thank you. Just got handed this from my engineer. Show prep is always going on at Foreclosurepedia. And I want to talk just a little bit more about Operation Pay Up. I'm quoting once again from Generation Progress, article by Lucy Stratton, October 30, 2014. Quote, Los Angeles Times reported that wage theft is especially rampant in California due to its underground economy. 1 in 6 construction workers are misclassified as independent contractors and paid solely in cash. Now, how many of these companies out there do you think are paying their people in cash? It's going to be a hell of a lot more than you think or want to believe. I'm quoting here Julie Su, then the California Labor Commissioner. A just day's pay for a hard day's work should be the reality in every workplace. And in fact, citing an article, a report rather, from the Economic Roundtable, it estimates that 1 in 4 Los Angeles workers, just Los Angeles workers, are paid under the table. Now, you may say, yeah, I hire a guy for the day, though, and this is how it should be. Bullshit. Because those 1 in 4 workers, just in Los Angeles, are depriving local governments of $7 billion a year in tax revenue. $7 billion a year. And when we look across the board, ladies and gentlemen, the inequity and inequality in the United States right now, as I talk to you, is the highest since the Great Depression. And you know, I didn't say that. You know who said that? Swiss bank Credit Suisse. They stated this in a 64-page report. And in that report, they found that the inequality in the United States is at its highest level since the Great Depression. The bank noted that incredibly high inequality ratios normally signal an imminent recession, which does not bode well for the nation's recovering economy. And let's talk about that for just a moment. I don't know how many of you out there actually pay attention to the markets or what's going on. The Federal Reserve Board over the past couple of days has been making some very interesting statements. Now, the Federal Reserve has what's called a balance sheet. And pre-08 crisis, that balance sheet had about $950, $980 million on it. That means debt. When the crisis hit, fast forwarding from the crisis all the way today, it's totaling about $4.5 trillion. This is all that toxic debt that the good old banks went ahead and laid upon the U.S. taxpayer, laid upon the markets globally, and their buddies over at the Fed bailed them out. So what did the Fed do? When they took all of those assets out of circulation, the remaining assets that were there, the remaining houses, started doing what? Increasing in value. Now, I have said for over 2 years, we're in a bubble. Nobody wants to believe it. We are in an enormous bubble, and we're already seeing that bubble start to burst, depending where you're at. I mean, you take the median home price in San Jose, it's over $1 million. Madness. The Fed's going to start offloading that balance sheet, and they've stated that that's what they're going to do. And what they did was they held that toxic debt for a while. It increased in some value, and they're going to dump that shit on the market. And you mark my words, they're going to do something else. They're going to stop continuing to repurchase those treasury notes that have kept everything out there humming along. Q3 of this year, we're going to start going into a new crisis. And it's going to make 08 look like a joke. No two ways about it. But I'm going to tell you, that aside, there's the ability to make damn good money in this industry. Those companies out there who are going to be able and capable of onboarding W-2 employees, those firms are going to be palatable to the banks. I've worked successfully with multiple companies. Everybody thinks, I don't want to get a W-2 contract because it's going to cost me money. Bullshit. When you take somebody whom is chronically unemployed, there are state and federal tax dollars, in many cases between $3,000 and $5,000 per person, that you will get in incentives. Combination of things, some in cash, some in retraining, some in tax credits. Same way if they're a veteran. I've worked successfully in 11 states pioneering this program with people. And those people are seeing a higher ROI than their competitors. And why is that? When you have a W-2 workforce, you have what I call the Big Mac model. I don't give a damn if you're in Moscow, Tokyo, New York City, Los Angeles. That Big Mac's going to be the same. And let's think about numbers for just a moment. Let's take a grass cut. Let's take 5 lawns. And you go to 5 independent contractors. They're all going to tell you, we want $100 a lawn. So you're not going to make a penny on the lawn. You'll get the grass cut, but you're going to do the processing and everything else for free. But you take those 5 lawns and you put 5 people out there making wages comparable to the Service Contract Act, depending what state, let's call that $15 an hour. So if the $100 you were going to spend was going to go to an independent contractor and you weren't going to profit upon that, now what do you have? An $85 profit. And every time the lawn is cut, it's going to be the same. Look, Ernie Stepkovic, the man was a genius. When he put AMS together, that was the largest outfit and the largest mass movement of W-2 contractors the industry had ever seen. Now, I don't approve of what he allowed to go on at AMS. And I do condemn him for allowing it to happen on his watch. He is responsible for that, and there's no two ways around it. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can't do that. And in the case of Ernie Stepkovic, his model was incredible. He was an incredible man. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we are today. And if you think MCS and the rest of them are going to muddle through it, you're full of shit. MCS is up for sale. You ask the right question of the right person there at MCS, and you're going to... Look, MCS is gone. Assurant, at the end of the day, they're not making much money. No one, if you're a national, makes much money in preservation, and that's a fact. But if you want to talk about MCS for just a moment, think about the pattern of chargebacks over the past 2 years, and why are they doing that? MCS needs to show a secondary line of revenue on their books for the fluffing of valuation. I'm not saying they're not spending the money. And we know absolutely for a fact that many of the chargebacks that they are issuing are illegal. In fact, HUD has confirmed that. I have that in writing with respect to NFR, with respect to Safeguard, with respect to all other firms out there. The vast majority of their chargeback strategies are scams as well. 18 to 36 months, and I'm never wrong in a prediction. 18 to 36 months, none of those companies will be there. because legally they cannot be there. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the bottom of the hour. I gotta do a brief station identification. This is Foreclosurepedia Podcast, presentation of Foreclosurepedia Radio Network, which premieres each weekend. My name is Paul Williams. I'm the editor-in-chief of Foreclosurepedia.org. At the bottom of the hour, we're gonna have a brief word from our sponsors. They help keep the lights on here, and we're gonna speak with several of the individuals whom the California State Controller has reached out to. You don't want to miss it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As usual, you may reach me on Google Plus at D. Paul Williams, LinkedIn, Paul Williams, and the LinkedIn group Property Preservation Consortium, Twitter, Foreclosurepedia. We stream all our podcasts on iTunes, Foreclosurepedia. We have our screencasts over on YouTube, the Foreclosurepedia channel, and always at foreclosurepedia.org. We'd like to give a special shout out to Amazon.com, whom provides our S3 podcast and video storage, and Cloudflare for hosting Foreclosurepedia in 24 different geo-positioned servers, pro bono as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to give me a shout out, COO at foreclosurepedia.org.